Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu gave a clear message to the international media in a press conference yesterday. Israel will defeat Hamas and free the hostages.
He also criticized the media for false coverage of the war. Chris Mitchell brings us the story from Jerusalem.
Netanyahu says there are 5 principles for the next phase of the war.
1, Hamas disarmed. 2nd, all hostages freed. 3rd, Gaza demilitarized. 4th, Israel has overriding security control. And 5, non-Israeli peaceful civilian administration. By that I mean a civilian administration that doesn't educate its children for terror, doesn't pay terrorists, and doesn't launch terrorist attacks against Israel.
He pushed back on claims Israel has created a humanitarian crisis.
Contrary to false claims, our policy throughout the war has been to prevent a humanitarian crisis, while Hamas's policy has been to create it. Since the beginning of the war, Israel has let in close to 2 million tons of aid. I know of no other army that has enabled such aid to go to the civilian population in enemy territory. Now, if we had a starvation policy, no one in Gaza would have survived after 2 years of war. But our policy has been the exact opposite.
He also slammed the international media for recently publishing photos of young Gazan children who were portrayed as starving, but who had pre-existing medical conditions.
But this is outrageous. These are the 3 most celebrated photos, and they're all fake. It's the kind of malignant lies that were leveled at the Jewish people in the Middle Ages. We won't suffer. We won't allow it to go unchallenged. I hope that you open your eyes to a simple fact. Hamas lies.
U.S. Ambassador to Israel Mike Huckabee also took to X and criticized CBS for selectively editing a recent interview. He asked, "Ever wonder how the media edits an interview to give you a different story than the one they had?" Huckabee posted his full unedited transcript, and critics pointed out that CBS cut out key answers, like widespread media reports that 27 people were killed at a Gaza Humanitarian Foundation aid site, but that never happened, and the media didn't correct it.
Well, Chris Mitchell is with us now from Jerusalem. Chris, it seems like no matter how many times Israel corrects the record, the media keeps running with false stories. How much of this is hurting Israel internationally?
Well, Gordon, we were at that press conference yesterday. He was asked that question directly. Is Israel winning the war? And he admitted they're not winning the PR campaign, to put it mildly. Now, he cites what he calls vast forces arrayed against Israel. For one, the algorithms of many of the social media networks. He says 60% of the responses on social media are bots. He says that's a big issue. But he also said they have to stand up and tell the truth with greater frequency. That's what he tried to do yesterday. Some have talked here in Israel about a national PR effort by Israel that they believe is desperately needed. But right now, Gordon, I would say there just seems to be such a great disconnect between the truth and the perception of what's really happening on the ground. That's what Prime Minister Netanyahu wanted to correct yesterday. It's also what U.S. Ambassador Mike Huckabee wanted to correct while he published his full transcript of his interview with CBS. This is the real battleground, I think, where Israel's facing.
Well, both you and our CBN News Bureau in Jerusalem have been leading the charge to expose these media lies, and it's just really frustrating to me that that message doesn't seem to be getting true. You can show the stage photos, you can show the false photos, children with genetic conditions being portrayed as starving children in Gaza. The whole narrative seems to be upside down, with Israel being the perpetrators of genocide when it's only Hamas calling for genocide of Israelis. So it just doesn't make any sense. What can we do to sort of break through this? Because it's for me, it's now more important than ever to stand with Israel.
Yeah, I agree. I think, first of all, it's a spiritual battle, Gordon. I think prayer will play a big part of that. But continuing to tell the truth, this is not the first time it's happened. If you look back, I believe in actually 1996, there was a report that Israel was actually undermining the Temple Mount. That's what Yasser Arafat was saying. It was untrue. It led to deaths of many people. We saw that during the Second Intifada, and we've seen it almost every war with Hamas, that Hamas uses the international media, telling falsehoods that many times the media runs with, and then people get a misperception of what actually is happening on the ground. What to do? Praying and keep reporting the truth, I would say. And there are many people that are doing that in social media, other networks. I know our colleagues at TBN do a great job as well. But I think I just keep telling the truth and trying to break that barrier of the perception of many people have that's really not true here on the ground.
Well, the media is actually having an impact. Australia is now supporting a Palestinian state. How is Israel going to respond to that?
Well, they're supporting a Palestinian state, Gordon, because you put the dots together. The media reports, misperceptions. That has a political impact, and that's why Australia, as well as other people like the UK and France, supporting a Palestinian state. So how is Israel responding? Earlier today, Deputy Foreign Minister Sharon Haskell, she said supporting a Palestinian state would be a reward for what she calls the monsters of October 7th. All the while, 50 hostages remain in Hamas's tortured dungeons, being starved to death. She says it's a wrong time to recognize a Palestinian state. And she points out that one of Hamas's leaders says recognition by a Palestinian state by Western leaders is the fruits of the October 7th massacre. So she just says Australia's rewarding Hamas, a terror organization, with the fruits of the worst slaughter of Jews since the Holocaust.
Well, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also pointed out that European leaders are saying things privately that are absolutely 180 degrees from what they're saying in public. What did he say about that?
Yeah, he said that in the press conference, Gordon. He said many leaders saying, look, we know you're right, saying that to Netanyahu, but we can't stand in the face of the public opinion in our own country. And he says that's especially true of European leaders, that obviously would be probably include the UK and France. And some believe it might be because of their large Muslim population. He also cited the fact that the German chancellor, the former one, when he came here right after October 7th, said Hamas is exactly like the Nazis. But to Netanyahu's point, he is saying he hears one thing in private and then he hears another thing in public.
Well, we need to expose these lies, and so you're in the front lines, Chris, and thank you for being the watchman on the wall, and thank you for keeping the record straight. I hope that the media will finally get embarrassed about how they're covering this war. So thank you for all that you're doing. For you at
Thanks,
home,
Gordon.
I agree with Chris. This is a spiritual battle, and we need to be using spiritual weapons. And our foremost weapon is to pray. And let's pray that these lies become exposed. Hamas is dedicated to wiping out Israel. They've said it in their charter and back in 1988. They restated it in more friendly terms in 2017. But when you hear, Iran calling it the Zionist entity, they're not even recognizing Israel as a state. When you hear these phrases, understand that there's a religious ideology underneath it. They can't come to negotiation. They can't ever say we'll live at peace with Israel. That's just not something they can ever possibly do. The genocide here and the threat from Iran, that Israel is the little Satan, you and I are the great Satan, from Hamas is to from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. That means there's no Israel anymore. That's the call to genocide. Throughout the history of the modern state of Israel, there's never been a government official ever that called for the elimination of the Palestinians. There's never been a general with the IDF, any officer with the IDF, that has ever called for the elimination of the Palestinian people. But the PLO has called for it, the Popular Front has called for it, Fatah has called for it, Hamas has called for it, Hezbollah has called for it, Iran's called for it. So who gets accused of genocide? Israel. And where should the accusation properly lie? With the terrorists that want to wipe Israel out. Let's call it for what it is. This is one of the biggest lies in modern history. We need to stand with the truth, and we need to stand with Israel.